Christopher Hitchens is here. He is a contributing editor to Vanity Fair magazine, also writes a monthly column for the Atlantic Monthly. He has written a dozen books, including A Long Short War and Why Orwell Matters. His new book is called Thomas Jefferson, Author of America. I am pleased to welcome Christopher back to this table, and it is a pleasure for me. And I just want to know, you did not want to be the only, this is your words, you did not want to be the only author in America who'd never written about Thomas Jefferson.
That's right. If you have to write a book about Thomas Jefferson if you hope for any position in society.
Yeah, or you'll never be in the Académie Française will never accept you if you've never written about it.
I would never have dared propose myself for this book. Yeah. But when an editor called and said, would I like to do it, I realized I couldn't refuse, because if you write about America, which is the great subject, you're always writing about it. TJ, he's in all of our conversations. I thought it's time I made my own sort of...
What is it about Americans, you think, and the Founding Fathers? They're just interesting people?
It's a remarkable, well, remarkable is a cheap, easy term for it. It's an extraordinary
It's a word that's not worthy to them.
It's an extraordinary fact. There are a couple of occasions in history. I suppose 5th century Athens is one. The group of people who were brought together to compose the King James Bible, the only decent book ever written by a committee, is another. And those who convened in Philadelphia, a city, the first city in the New World to be a city of the Enlightenment, of science and medicine and reason. Comparable to the French philosophe. It's all new and it's all ready, and they have a whole continent to practice it on. And Franklin and Madison and Jefferson and Hamilton, these minds. Thomas Paine, my personal favorite actually, Thomas Paine, child of and fighter for the English Revolution and British Enlightenment, coming wafting across the Atlantic with a letter, just carrying a letter from Ben Franklin saying, be nice to this guy. All of them getting the Benjamin Rush. Joseph Priestley, the guy who discovers oxygen,
comes moves from Paine because of the power of his ideas, or because of the power of his pen?
Partly because he's my model for Englishmen in America. Fantastic pen, and because he shows that Age of Reason and Rights of Man are the same thing. You can't have Rights of Man without an Age of Reason, in fact. And because I think he's the first person to use the word democratic as a compliment. John Adams used the word democratical as an insult. Most people did. Edmund Burke did. Paine says, no, Democrat is a good word.
Thomas Jefferson, you've written more books than Thomas Jefferson ever wrote, this great writer.
No, well, that's
yes, it's true. Thomas Jefferson never wrote a book. One, I think. One.
Well, no, he wrote a great deal.
He wrote a great deal of things, but mostly letters.
Yes, it's true.
One book, as far as I know.
I guess, well, I think maybe we could say 3. 2, well, Notes on the State of Virginia, wonderful but rather worrying book about economy and society in Virginia. His own autobiography, and his own version of the New Testament, the Jefferson Bible, which he did by snipping out. He snipped out all the ludicrous bits from the New Testament.
How good is his own autobiography?
It's not very good at all.
That's what I heard.
No, I mean, it's a thing you have to encounter when you're dealing with him. This is a very cold guy in some ways, rather solitary, almost no sense of humor, very ruthless, very single-minded.
Did you excuse him for not having a sense of humor?
It's very hard to do. He thought Sterne's Tristram Shandy was a hysterically funny novel. I mean,
and you couldn't believe it.
He would read it aloud to his wife and would laugh when she read it.
I think I read it.
I mean, it's a really bleak scene. Not without wit, but without humor. It's also a very forbidding figure in some way.
You also suggest he's a great compromiser.
Yes.
At everything.
Yes, but not just in his own self-interest. Not a great triangulator.
For the country he wanted to see.
If he thought it would enlarge the power and reach of the United States, there was nothing he wouldn't do. In other words, he really believed one should always consult Congress on major matters, especially if they involve spending. But he committed them without telling them, to remove the pirate slave states from North Africa and send the fleet to finish them off. And he cheated them on the Lewis and Clark expedition and the Louisiana Purchase by basically trying to raise the money privately. It's fantastically unconstitutional. So we'll need the money to bribe the French. We'll need the money to finance the expedition. We'll smuggle it through Congress under another name. And people will, when they realize what we've done, they'll approve it.
What did you like most about
him? His contempt for religion, I think.
Something you share.
Yes. His scorn for faith and for what he would have called superstition and for organized religion, but his respect for it in that he said everyone must be allowed to practice any form of it that they wish, but that must not involve the government. They must not try and involve state power for the spreading of
Yeah, but did he
the
have...
Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom is the foundation of the First Amendment.
Okay, but wait. It's one thing to want to see a separation of state and church. It's another thing to have contempt for church.
Sure.
He had contempt for church?
You don't
or
have
he just
to have
did not believe it should have influence on state?
In order to be secular, you don't have to be agnostic, or let alone atheist or anti-theist.
Was he any of those?
But I'm impressed by the fact that for his time he was unusually scornful and skeptical of religion's claims. He didn't really believe them. He faced his own death very sternly and said, I'm approaching it with neither hope nor fear, which means it can't have been a Christian.
Right, that's agnostic.
Yeah. May have been a deist of some kind, flirted with Unitarianism, really despised the Presbyterians, particularly despised them. They were the strongest faction in Virginia.
Because of
really
destiny and all that predestiny stuff?
Yes, because of their cruel Calvinistic theology, and because of their greed, their desire to be maintained by the public purse. I think that when he was towards the end of his life, and he died very lucid, no priest anywhere near the bedside, nothing on the headstone, none of this, quite extraordinary.
Who was there?
Sally Hemings was there.
Was she really?
Yes, she was. Well, she was his wife's half-sister, remember?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an extraordinary thing. A lot of people don't know it, but I mean, Sally Hemings had the same father as Martha Jefferson. So we already know some of what's going on the old plantation, and she comes to him as a gift from his deceased father-in-law. And she's a privileged house servant whose grandfather is also white.
She had gone to Paris with him, had she?
She went to Paris to bring his daughter over, yes.
Yeah.
And slavery wasn't legal on French soil. That's where they met properly.
Is that where they started whatever relationship they had? Or was
I believe so, yes. I think it must have started
very young
there.
then, though, wasn't she? Like
15, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah.
I mean, borderline from what we would think of as legitimate, but grown enough to be given charge of his daughter to cross the Atlantic on her own with.
Yeah.
Obviously not a child.
Where are you in terms of American foreign policy? Supported military action in Kosovo, supported military action in Iraq. You seem to believe, have come to this not because of Iraq and not because of neoconservatives and all that they have written about regime change and everything else, and the promotion of democracy. You seem to have come from this because of a hatred of dictators. What's your philosophy?
You put it very flatteringly to me.
How would you put it?
Well,
less flatteringly.
That's what I wish people would conclude. I mean, I decided after the Cold War was over, we thought maybe we now can start to dismantle the weapons and spend some more money on the Third World and all of that. Remember the peace dividend, and it lasted for, if you count the fall of the Berlin Wall as November '89, it lasted for about 120 days, this illusion. So then Saddam Hussein invades Kuwait. Slobodan Milosevic invades Bosnia.
Right.
Ruins our new scheme. Of course. How could I have been so naive? Cooperation with, coexistence with, totalitarian, expansionist, one-man state, one-God state ideologies is impossible. And that's good, because it's not desirable. It's us or them. It'll be them. Even more true, of course, of jihadism and of Talibanism and Kim Il-sungism. I mean, we actually, there isn't enough room on the planet for us and them. And that's what they think, that's what they think and say, and they're right.
They being, there's a linkage between all of these people, or they just worship the same ideology?
There is a linkage, oddly enough. For example, when Saddam Hussein was slaughtering the Muslim, when Slobodan Milosevic was slaughtering the Muslims of Bosnia, he had support and weapons from Saddam Hussein, the alleged leader of Muslim feeling.
Well, but it was just simply a mercenary act rather than a political act?
Actually, their militaries had also both had a parasitic relationship with the old Soviet Union. As it happens, they both welcomed the attempted overthrow of Gorbachev. Remember that coup when it looked for a while as if Gorbachev was gone? Both the Baathists and the Serbian socialists both applauded that. There is a subconscious connection, and it's bonded by anti-Americanism. It has that in common, of course, with jihad in its purest form, the Bin Ladenist and Taliban lot, and with the post-Stalinism, the sort of praised Kim Il-sung